Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Esports Reviews. Thank you so much for joining me today, and a special thank you to everyone who's returning. It means so much to me, to everyone who comes back to these videos and leaves a like, and if anyone feels like dropping a comment. And also want to give a special thank you to everyone who's new here. This is your first video of mine. Thank you so much for choosing to pick on my video and check it out. Hopefully you like it enough to comment and like, even maybe subscribe even a little bit, but definitely go ahead and interact, regardless how you feel. But anyways, I gotta give a shout out to all of you guys. Thank you so much for all of this. But before we get into this, I just want to give a quick shout out to my mid-season discussion that I did a few weeks ago with my boy Dirty Dan. Go ahead and check that out before the end of the season, when we're going to go ahead and do a season finale discussion and all of that. So keep an eye out for that, and also don't forget to check out the discussion videos, which is going to be linked down below. So this week we are back with action-packed episode, back to the main story. Things are flowing again. We had that little hiccup last week. I know that wasn't very well received. I had a few moments to it, but we really wanted things to get going here, especially now that we're at the final, I guess now 2 more episodes left of the series. So this week we came and we started with an unknown clone who was not only running, but it seemed like they were being hunted by a group of unknown individuals at the time. Later, of course, we find out the identity of all of these groups involved, but we'll save that for later. And then we also pick up the crew, who they're just casually traveling through hyperspace. They were on their way to a mission for Sid, but things took a real quick detour as soon as they get a transmission from Rex, who you really just can't ignore, honestly. I wouldn't ignore a call from Rex if I was them. But they get a call from Rex who's asking him to go help out a friend of his. And the crew's like, I don't know, we got a mission to do. Wrecker's just like, they make a good point. They make a good point. They make a good point. But it's really not only Omega who makes a push for this, but Echo who really makes a push for this. Echo and Rex have a very solid past. They trust each other. They're brothers, like they truly say they are. And Echo, of course, trusts Rex, so he knows Rex wouldn't ask for this if it wasn't something really important. So his determination really helped Hunter go ahead and make the final decision for them to get going on this mission here. So a lot went down this episode, but honestly, the biggest thing that came for me in this episode were the Kaminoans finally being outed by the Empire. The Empire finally chose to give up on Kamino and its cloners, and that's a really huge deal here. So, for one reason, it's because we know that the Empire is really moving on from the process of the clones, and they're moving on to volunteers who are loyal to the Empire. They may not be as skilled, but they want zealots. They want people who are going to fearlessly join them and help their cause, regardless of what it may seem morally and ethically. But we see from this that the Empire is really trying to flex their muscles here. They're really trying to make a push and show just how capable they are, not only politically, but also flex their martial might here a lot. We know it's not on a mass scale, but it's enough people to fill a mountain base that the Batch was able to come across here in this episode. We see that people here in this facility are being trained by clone commandos, one of which we found out was our man Gregor. But he was sent there to train these new volunteers who are loyal to the Empire, and they're meant to be replacement to the clone army that they're currently using, finding them to be somewhat not only expensive, but maybe even obsolete to a degree. We also learned from Crosshair and the Admiral in this episode, as they're having a little conversation, that they have orders to keep an eye on the Kaminoans, and this is coming from the top. Whether it's coming from Tarkin or even maybe one step above the Emperor, it's definitely important that they start to move ahead of this in terms so that the Kaminoans don't get too big of a head, and also they don't sort of hatch some sort of plan that can hinder them in the future. And by that I'm talking about a clone army that's going to meant to destroy the Empire. And later at the end of this episode, right before right before they get outed. We find out that the Prime Minister learns that their contracts have been canceled by the Empire, and that they have to prepare to leave the Empire and Camino altogether. But we find out that it's too late, of course. The Admiral, who requests that Nalisea stays because she is a useful scientist, and the Prime Minister is no longer needed because they have no need for a political puppet. But a scientist they do need. For that, I have many questions for. So the Kaminoans may be down, but they're definitely not out, and they may have a way depending on how the Empire wishes to proceed. So the batch is able to make it to the planet where the distress signal is coming from, and they're able to find a base under a mountain that holds an overwhelming force that really made the job a lot harder for the batch this time around than a lot of the other ones you've seen so far this season. They were going up against clones, but clone commandos. And they made a loss, but they also gained a really useful ally in the commando Gregor from the end of this sort of mission. So we know that Gregor was on his way to go meet up with the goat Rex, right? The only other person who's able to help him out, someone who was actually going to go ahead and help out Gregor anyways if he wasn't going and doing something really sus, honestly, in that transmission. I'm very curious to know what he was doing and what sort of mission, honestly. But more on that hopefully in the future. But anyways, we know that Gregor is meant to go to him anyways, and I think the crew is going to follow with just that, making sure he gets there safe, also because he's shot and he needs medical attention. But they really need someone to help them, and honestly to help them get Hunter back, because we know that they're not going to just abandon him. And with that, we're going to get the introduction of Rex and his crew in some form or fashion, and of course they're going to go and break Hunter out. With Hunter getting captured, I don't think it's really up to him what happens to his crew anymore. This situation that he's been trying to protect everyone from all this time is slowly falling down on them. And especially with him getting captured, they have no choice but to possibly pick a side in this whole galactic conflict between Rebels and Empire, as he's now seen as a serious threat, and he can't be left alive, and they can't be left to run. They're going to have to stand and choose a side at some point. And honestly, this might be the final straw for him. So, I definitely want to get into some notable moments here, because there were really some cool moments in this episode. And a lot of it came from this rescue escape portion of the operation that they were in. First, I want to give a shout out to the clone commandos that were in this episode. Not someone we really see a whole lot, but for those who know, these guys are really something special. They are the special forces, the black ops of what was the Republic Army, and they really saw some of the darkest and craziest combat that the clone army really had to go through. And they had some cool moments in this, whether it was almost cornering the Bad Batch and honestly almost stopping their entire escape, maneuvering through them. They really showed that they were capable and a little bit of a threat here. And this whole time, I really knew that they were going to be a linchpin and honestly something that could stop them from really succeeding in their mission. And the rest of the moments were really from the crew during the moments of escape. First, I gotta shout out Gregor, who came out and actually was using live fire against the clones who were chasing after them. Everyone else has been using stun. He has himself in the past, but when he came out and he opened the hatch, he was using live rounds on them and actually taking them out. Whether it was on purpose, I don't know, but honestly, he did what might have had to be done. He also knew what had to be done when it came to using the gun on the ship when they were trying to escape from those fighters when they were being chased on the side of the mountain. So shout out to Gregor. He really came in clutch with that, helped them get out. Also shout out to Omega, who somehow knew how to use the Gonk droid to help the ship. How does she know how to do that? I'm going to go ahead and guess this is a little more of that intellect, tactical skill that she's learning that she's able to use now. I don't think it's too big of a deal, but it was really quick thinking, so shout out to her for that. And last but not least, shout out to Tech, the MVP of flying once again, with all of these evasive moves. Tech's really a great pilot. I didn't know he was so good up until recently, but he's really proven himself there. And he had some really great moves, especially with that deep dive down at the bottom and pulled up right above the tree line for them to escape. So shout out to Tech. If it wasn't for him, I don't know where these guys would honestly be. And I know I said Tech was last, but honestly, I have to give one more last just because it's him. But shout out to Hunter, who honestly gave the biggest sacrifice you can. Not the biggest, but in this case, it was really big because he could have been like, hey, come back for me. But he knew that he had to give himself up for his crew, whether that meant death, life, or captivity. And he knew what he had to do for his crew. There was nothing else to do. So shout out to Hunter for making the hard decision. And I don't think it's going to go unrepaid. They're gonna come back. They're going to help him out. And honestly, I'm going to be in awe of this whole rescue operation because I can't wait to see what they have planned with hopefully Rex and maybe even some other people coming in. Who knows? They've been helping out quite a few people in this series, so maybe a few favors can get called in. But honestly, I just can't wait to see. Now, of course, let's get into some predictions. I know I said a little bit before, but let's just touch on a few other things here. So, of course, we're going to go ahead and see Rex and possibly his crew next episode in some form or another because there's really nowhere else for them to go. I mean, it's possible for them to go to Sid in this situation, but I don't think Sid would do much help for them, especially with Gregor on board. He's going to want to go to Rex directly, and Rex seems like the most reasonable and liable person to help them out in this situation, especially with Hunter. I don't think Sid cares enough to go help out Hunter personally and go up against the Empire at that. Also, I think that next episode, we're going to have a really good conversation between Hunter and Crosshair. At least I'm hoping for one. I think we're really long overdue for something like that. Something like that could have happened in the first episode before they left Camino, or even, I think it was around episode 9 or 10 when they got cornered on the Jedi cruiser by Crosshair and his team. I think it's time for a dialogue between Crosshair and his old commander. It's long overdue, so I'm hoping for something really solid there between them. And also, we might even learn a little bit about the Empire's plans military-wise here because of Crosshair. But also, I think we also might learn more of that from Gregor, like I mentioned previously as well. And my last prediction, we know that Nala Se being taken captive here by the Admiral and the rest of the Imperials on Camino, and depending on where he is, Hunter may come in contact with Nala Se if they do choose to take him back to Camino, because there really aren't too many places he could go, and there really isn't much you can do with him as a captive. So I think it would be in the best interest of the Empire to try and send him to Camino, pick and probe him a little bit, run some experiments, see if they can't either clone him or try to turn him into, something similar to Crosshair as well. Either way, it's a win-win for them. So I think that's definitely what the Admiral, when he had plans or a use for Nala Se in this regard. So if the two of them meet, Nala Se can either A, get that DNA from him for the clones that they need, or maybe she may see Hunter as a means of escape as well. So I think either of those is possible. I'm very curious to see how this all plays out with Hunter in the hands of the Imperials. So with that, we really got back to the main story here, and it's looking like the season finale is really going to heat up. It's getting real spicy over here at the batch. They're going to be tested. There's going to be so much adversity, so much drama, honestly. And I honestly, I just can't wait. There's so much to be seen left. And with that, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, or dislike if you really feel like it. But either way, let me know what you think about this episode down below in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week for episode 15. Take care, everybody. Bye.